She's changing and saving women's lives fast and easily. She's the author of Brave Bitches, a menstrual coach. She empowers women to heal and break cycles of trauma. And she champions mental health for families of defense and emergency services. So that's also something quite inspiring. And I hand over to Kylie Bonnor.
It's actually really humbling hearing that from somebody else. Because like I know, and people tell me that I've saved their lives, so when you hear it again, you're like, oh, who is this person? So I'm very, very privileged and grateful to be here today in this room. And some of the things that I'm going to talk about can be very uncomfortable and are very taboo in a lot of cultures. So I'm just going to throw it out there that there is a trigger warning overall. And there is some generalisations in the world that we live in. I'm very respectful of chosen gender, but what I'm talking to you about today is the gifts we were born with. The gifts, or sometimes what people call it, the curse. So please, if I do not mean to offend if I generalise as saying male, female, not one of the 56 options, okay? All for you choosing, this is not about that. so let's get started. Today I am talking to you about productivity, and I have a couple of notes because it's really important that I get the statistics right, but the Bloody Big Survey by Share the Dignity from this year, 2024, found that 56% of respondents missed work due to their period and menstruation. And $9.6 billion is the total figure in Australia. Remember, our dollar is not US equivalent, very low. $9.6 billion is the total figure attributed to missed work days. So you can understand my passion and my drive for productivity when it comes to the female-centric workplace. So, we're talking about the things that can change and impact our cycles, the mental health impacts of ignoring these rhythms, and practical strategies. And I just want to say, for the men in the room, all of you, this talk is one that I give to military and emergency first responders to help their relationships and their workplaces. So this is also for the fellas, because as was said yesterday, we all have a mum and daughters and sisters and families. So knowing this is actually a superpower for everybody. And I can explain that more to the fellas later on, because I'll give you the secrets of for dealing with the women in your life. So they can't click or what like that. Okay, so all women are born with a cycle. We have a cycle from the day we are born to the day we die. However, to the day we die. However, we are brought into this world of medicine, culture, taboo, stigma that believes that we only have a cycle from the day we hit puberty to the day we hit menopause. And that is a really unfortunate misconception and problem for us to try and fit into this world that is hensely very male-centric from a medical point of view, from a cultural point of view, and if you go back tribally, like Australia has an Indigenous population of 60,000 years, and they always had men's business and women's business. And the men knew not to bother the women during women's business because they have business to be done, and that business is doing nothing. And the reason we do that is because we have to. But any of these things can affect our cycle. So it can be exercise, too much, too little, it can affect it. It can be polycystic ovarian syndrome, it can be fibroids, it can be the pill, and the contraceptive pill, it can be, the rod thing or the coil, the implants, marinas, things like that. But also, if you look here, we've got things like deadlines and stress that also impact on women. Well, we always have stress, right? And, did that work? That was magic! So here we've been born. We are children, we are daughters of the patriarchy, and we've been born into a world that is post-industrial revolution, which is phenomenal if you are a male. And because traditional business in this century is based on a beautifully masculine model of this, that you work for 8 hours, you play for 8 hours, and you sleep for 8 hours, and life is grand, sort of. But that overlooks what more than half, 52% of society is female, and it overlooks that intrinsic needs. So the masculine framework leads to burnout, feelings of inadequacy, more stress, and women are often pressured or raised to conform to an 8-hour work day, 40-hour work week, couple of days off, and it neglects our natural cycles. Sorry. So let me tell you, in brain scans, it's really hard to see like this. This is a male brain in brain scans, and they did it with males and they did it with females. And what is found, it's really hard to see, is that men's brains work within the hemispheres a lot. It does cross over a few times, but mostly it's left side or right side brain activity. But what happens with the females is we're a little bit busier inside our brain. So females have 23% more white matter versus more grey matter than the fellas, and our brains cross over, go backwards, spiral around, and it's a bit of a jumble, and it's a heck of a mess.
Can you put back a slideshow? I want that.
Yeah.
I need a bigger picture next time to show my husband.
And I will tell you, there's a fantastic video by a guy called Mark Gungor on YouTube that explains this phenomenon.
He's good.
So we are a little bit huge. And that is the end of my presentation. So then we add in the hormones. And I've just kept it really simple today to 2 hormones for women, but we've got we've got 4 plus the thyroid, plus the adrenals, plus all this other stuff. But these 2 are the 2 main ones, estrogen and progesterone. Now, progesterone is the masculine hormone for women, and it's the one that you get as you ovulate and keeps you pregnant. So if you then don't get pregnant, you have a period. It drops, you have a period. And the estrogen is the really feminine one. And if people have got too much estrogen or an estrogen imbalance, they'll be tearier and more emotional, but it also comes into the next bit of that same slide. Can you get that? And so this is over a month, right? And this is the fellas over the month. So what happens is the males are born without the cycle, right? And they live with their mums, so they experience cycles, but they're born and they come along for their life and their hormones in here, they hit puberty, and then this comes into effect. It's very stable till the day they die, from about 13-ish, just say, to 100. Any nurse will tell you that they are still going at 100. Okay? I need that back. This one? All right, so, and the thing that, the thing that I love about this bit, when you compare it, if I do it on a whiteboard, I often show the fellas line, because when it comes into the monthly thing, it's about here, and what happens with women, with a masculine energy, is that it stabilises us, and it brings us back to centre. So it's not good or bad, it's just different, and it's what life is. So, but this is daily and this is monthly, so you can sort of see how that could play out in a relationship at home or in a workplace. Can you go to the next bit on the same slide? And women have, there it goes again, but if you'd seen that in the blink of an eye, women have more, like 25% roughly, more neuronal head to heart nerve connections, which is why we are more feeling and emotional. So each of these is like a neuron in your brain, and they fire off. And they connect to our pineal gland, and they connect to our adrenals, and they connect to all of our body, and they connect to each other, and they connect to hormones, and they connect to emotions. So remember, with women, if we've got 25% more, we're going to be much more emotional depending on what's going on here. The other thing that happens with PTSD is if a trauma happens on day 7 of the month, and this is where the hormones are, any time in future that this hormonal imprint or copy hits that woman may feel sensitive or a bit precarious and not have any idea why, but on that 13th day of every month or whatever it is, that's a tricky day for her to deal with. And if she doesn't know this stuff, she doesn't know that, and she can't deal with it. So let's move on. Again. So what does that have to do with anything? So this is me. About 10 years ago, I have had a business for, I've had 3 businesses across nearly 30 years, 25 years or something. And for 17 years I was a makeup artist, and I helped other women start businesses. I trained them, I loved what I did, but I never felt like I was achieving enough, I never felt like I was good enough. My head chatter was crazy. I had 3 kids, 2 of them had special needs. We've got the trifecta now, so it's okay, don't worry, I got 100%. But we were in this, and this was my monkey brain screaming at me. And I could have had a great month with sales, and my team could be doing great all around the country, and everything can be going great, but this was still going on, and I still felt not good enough, like a failure. What the hell is going on? If I had a great month, then I'd have to recover 5 days or a month after just watching Netflix and just to recover. And the other thing that happened was that I had 3 children, and I learned about epigenetics. Yes, yeah. So here we are. This is the beautiful Carmen was talking about the 3 generations. Now, actually, science has proven that it's 14 generations, and just between you and me in this room, it's pretty logical to think that 14 generations ago, there was probably 14 generations before that, and design is perfect, and knowledge and wisdom is passed down perfectly, so it's probably not just 14 that science can prove, it's probably infinite, but let's just go with 14 because that's what science has done. So this is me, pregnant with my daughter, and guess what? I carried my grandbabies just like every other mother of a girl ever did. So by 20 weeks gestation, a female baby has all the eggs for her reproduction inside of her. Now, if you look at that, any experience that this mum has, beautiful Barbie mum, has, the child and the grandchild are experiencing. Emotional, physical, learning, and our brain's designed to keep us safe and alive, and that wisdom is passed down, and we know stuff without knowing stuff. Like, no one taught me how to breathe. but I read. I read just know stuff, and where I'm using them are miraculous. And so that has epigenetics. And the story of my epigenetics was that my father was abusive. My mother left him. And that was fine. And I was never going to have children living in a house like that. I was never going to be in a relationship like that. Before I met my husband, I got into a relationship that was emotionally abusive. So he never hit me, but he was emotionally abusive. So then I was like, hang on a minute. And I met my husband, and the rest, as I say, is history, and he treats me very well. But fast forward a few years and a few special needs, and kids and stress and this craziness of trying to be everything for a business and run a company and look professional and have people not judge me. And all of a sudden, I became the domestic abuser in my household. And I wasn't, there was a few smacks, I suppose, but it was mostly verbal. And the other thing that I had growing up was a really poor body image. I now have a son who's 19, who is very not okay with his actions. And I have, even though I broke the cycle for us 10 years ago, I'm living with the implications of epigenetics. I have other family that has issues that has been, I can see, passed down, which I've broken the cycle, but now it's already, seeds have already been planted through this space. And it's about me helping other people break that cycle. And I guess that's my thing. It's really big in the military families, it's really big in emergency first responders and PTSD. And my passion is that it is recoverable. Doctors just don't think outside the box yet. And they're starting to, because people like me are telling them they have to, and they're learning this stuff because they're not taught some of this. Like they know it, but they're not taught it in a whole body system. And when they're taught it in a whole body system, life is changed for the better for everyone. Okay, so let's get on to what we're talking about, which is understanding the cycles. So we have generally 4 cycles. Spring, I'm going to call them nice names, mostly for the people who are uncomfortable with it. But spring, summer, autumn and winter. And they all have different reasons and meanings. And let's go. So spring is follicular. Spring is when it matches beautifully to the nature. So spring outside, if you look out into a space that is 4 seasons, you'll see spring. It's green, it's freshest. There's new energy, things are being born. It's nice. Summer is ovulation. Winter, autumn is luteal. So summer's only a couple of days long. It's a bit sad because that's kind of the nicest. Autumn, luteal, it's the bit that you're coming down, the leaves are starting to die and fall off the tree, and you become very creative. And winter is menstruation. So let's look at them a bit more detailed. And why does it matter for business productivity? Because the reason I had a monkey brain was that I was pushing myself in times that I shouldn't have been. And then I felt guilty if I didn't achieve something, or I didn't do something for the kids, or something just didn't happen. So then I'd beat myself up, and my mental self-monkey mind head chart was crazy. And so, moving through this, and we can also think of it about stages of life. So, spring, the maiden, it's the young time, it's everything's new and flourishing. This is the best time for, let's go here. Your clarity is phenomenal and your energy is rising. If you've looked after yourself in menstrual, I will just say, it's your time for strategizing and planning. It's the time to write your to-do lists. Write every to-do list that you're going to need for when your brain becomes foggy in a couple of weeks' time. You're clear-headed. You can switch tasks really quickly, so you can have lots of meetings because you can go from one to the other to the other. It's a really good time for, I actually don't think this is the best time for being social, but it's the time for ramping things up. The best time for being social is summer, which is ovulation. Now, in ovulation, we all know that ovulation is designed for procreation and making babies. But what happens to a woman during ovulation is her breasts get a bit bigger and rounder, and her hair looks shinier, and her skin's really clear, and she looks hot, and she's got more progesterone, which is the masculine hormone, so she's like confident, and she's just wow. And you'll see people and you'll be like, oh, she's glowing today. She's probably here. And 80% of affairs happen in the 3 days of ovulation for a woman. Wow. Because women feel more attractive, right? So, women in the room, men included, this is the time to talk to your husbands about what you want, or your bosses for your raise. This is the time. Go and talk to them. This is the time to have your sales meetings.
I give you 2 more minutes because you already played.
Okay, sorry. In autumn, we have the luteal. This is the time to start doing your to-do list. Get your to-do lists that you did in the first one and start working through them, your menu planning, so that in winter you can just relax. The reason we have a period as a woman is to get rid of the hormones and to detox. And if we don't rest, we don't detox our hormones well enough. So we're carrying the cortisol on month to month, and we're carrying all of those hormones that we should be cleared out and fresh and beautiful and vibrant and sexy and lovely. So it's really important to schedule less meetings if you can. I mean, the world that we live in is not going to stop for a week, so it's still able to be done. But that is it in a nutshell, and the mental health connection work. So this is why it's really important. If you don't allow these things to happen, eventually, usually by about 40 to 45, we're hitting perimenopause, the hormones are going a bit more wild, and we end up with more stress, anxiety, burnout, mental health breakdowns, things like that. All because you've pushed through. If you understand your cycle, it can foster a sense of calm. You don't feel guilty sitting on the couch watching Netflix for 3 days because you worked hard when you needed to. And so then you don't have that mind chatter, it's all planned and that everything's lovely. And it's how it's designed. But recognising where you're at, whether you have a uterus, whether you don't, whether you bleed, whether you don't, whatever the case may be, you have a cycle from the day you're born to the day you die, and we need to learn how to do that. And understanding that will help you with emotional reactions and things like that too. So, track your cycle, especially if you don't know how, if you don't have a uterus, if you've passed menopause, if you have anything like that, there's still ways to do it, and that's what I love to teach people, because their life becomes better. Plan during follicular, network during ovulation, create during luteal, and rest and reflect during menstruation, and implement small, really mindful changes. Introduce happiness programs, things like that for your mental health. So how can I help you? I help people with period tracking. I help people learn for their children. I help people learn for new stages of their life. After children, their periods change, things like that. If they have a hysterectomy, if they hit menopause, perimenopause. I help with calming the crazy entrepreneur overthinking the brain, because there is a hormonal link, but there is also the epigenetic link, and clearing that stops all of that anyway. And there you are.
Thank you.